punk rock and distributing Prabhupada's books and Prasadam back in the heyday. And I don't know, best friends since the beginning. Thousands.
They average about 1,000 plates a day.
1,000 plates a day out of the University of Florida. Go Gators. Right? So he's did that for many years and doing preaching efforts and even renovations. He's a Renaissance man of the ages. Wonderful. So without further ado, I turn it over to my dear friend, Jagannath Puri Dham. Hari Bol.
No, I just didn't know if it was available. What time do you generally gotta pick it up?
It's 2:48.
Oh, really? Oh, we like to serve Sean by 4. Really?
By 4. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right. So it's difficult to live up to. I was just trying to read. It's difficult to live up to such a prestigious introduction. So before, I mean, I have some things that I'd like to speak about, but if anybody has a topic that's like really burning or any questions or anything, like, honestly, feel free to interrupt me because your question is probably more important than anything that I have to say. So that said, I was thinking to do sort of a continuation. Last week was a big festival. For those of you who don't know, it was Govardhan Puja. Govardhan Puja is one of the most lovely holidays we have. Because usually our holidays, they're linked with some kind of austerity, right? Usually it's some kind of fasting, or you're supposed to give something in charity or things like that. Govardhan Puja, literally it's about eating. Like, it sort of coincides with the rest of the world has like fall festivals, harvest festivals. So it's kind of a similar thing. So the history is Indra, the Lord of Heaven, he was trying to usurp the position of God, actually. So in context, like the demigods are sort of like angels or people who have, it's a position, it's a post. So I was going to speak on the antagonist of the story. So we spoke about Krishna. He's the hero. He's the savior. But Indra, he's sort of the villain. So that's the other part is a lot of times our holidays, they focus on who the villain is. So when we celebrate like Shringadev's appearance day, right? We always say it's Lord Shringadev's appearance day, but actually we're celebrating Hiranyakashipu's disappearance, right? Because we don't celebrate, we don't have the culmination is the feast, right? We don't actually celebrate until he's killed. So if we were celebrating Lord Shringadev's appearance day, it would be when he appeared. We would finish then, but it's actually wait until, it's not dark, it's not day, that sort of thing. So real quick recap, right? So historically speaking, there is a sacrifice that goes on. It's called Indra Yagya. So it's an offering to Indra, and Indra, his position is that he provides the rain. So according to the Vedas, there is no rain without sacrifice, right? So we have to give something to get something. And Krishna, in his boyhood pastimes, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he comes to be with us and he shows us how we can have different relationships with him. So one of those relationships is like a parent. So he comes to his father. He says, "Dad, why are we doing this? Like Indra provides rain over the ocean. Like, it seems kind of silly. Like everybody gets rain, whether they worship Indra or not. The fish aren't saying, 'Oh, Indra, you're so wonderful. Please give us rain.' And so rather we should worship Govardhan." And he gives very detailed instructions on how that should happen. And there's sort of a back and forth, right? And Indra becomes very angry. And so he summons his most powerful clouds. So the king of heaven, they're called, does anybody remember what they're called? Samvartika clouds. So they're in charge of like universal devastation. When the whole creation ends, Samvartika comes and rains down. So he says, "Okay, Krishna, you think you're better than I am? I'll do my deed," right? And then Krishna, he always has one in his back pocket. Like he's not one to be upped. And so he actually lifts up Govardhan Hill. And all the denizens of the area, they come and take shelter and they're saved. And this is where the pivoting point, right? 7 days, Krishna holds up this hill in his left pinky. And Indra sees this. And after 7 days, he says, "Oh, well, maybe this small child is actually more than just some child. Maybe he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead." And so he relinquishes the rain, and then he offers these wonderful prayers, right? So before we get into the prayers, there's some technical information that I wanted to go over. It's just interesting. Take it as you will. Who is Indra right now? Does anybody know? What is Indra's name? I thought this one would stop. His name is Purandar. So Indra, like I said before, is a post. The word Indra actually means like Lord. So when we refer to Indra, we always just say Indra. But so in the universe, there's a bureaucracy. And in the bureaucracy, it's set up according to cycles. So every Manvantar has a Manu who's in charge. And so the Manu is kind of overseeing business as usual. And so who's our Manu currently? Anybody know? Swayambhuva Manu. Right. So Swayambhuva Manu pairs up with an Indra. So Indra's post, he's the king of heaven. So why is he the king of heaven? Because he actually protects the heavenly realms. Like that's what the king does. And so when I was thinking about this, I was thinking like, as far as the hierarchy of planetary systems go, right? Like Brahmaloka is actually superior to Indraloka, but Indra is the king. And so I was like, it's because, Brahma doesn't have much to do with protection. And that's a leader has to protect. That's like a Kshatriya's nature. So let's see. So Indra, does anybody know how the current Indra became Indra? What did he do to become Indra? 100 sacrifices, right? And he's actually actively stopped anyone who has tried to match him. because he doesn't want to like give up his throne. And that's sort of the intrinsic nature of Indra, is pride, right? And as we read different stories of Indra, like he has this great position, and it's hard to think that like somebody who's in charge of so much and is giving so much, just like really fumbles the ball all the time. Like, yeah, like, and it's just kind of funny. And he does some things you're just like, I would never think to do that. Like, that's insane. And so here he is. He's faced with Krishna, who everybody is sort of perplexed by. He's this little boy. When he lifts Govardhana, he's 7 years old, right? And so the Vedas, they sort of break up boyhood or childhood, right, in different stages. So even, modern psychology, they talk about child development. So he's sort of in that second era of child development where the main thing you do is you make friends and you get some responsibility. So his only responsibility at this point is actually, he's given a herd of cows, right? That's like Krishna, that's his family. They're cow herders. Nanda is the king, and they have so many cows to tend to. And so before that age, he had some calves that he was with, and because now he's big and strong, right? He gets a herd of cows to take care of. And I only bring that up because Gopastami is coming up, and that's the day that Krishna, he becomes a secondary boy, right? He gets his herd. And so here he is. Only thing he has to do, the only responsibility he has is to look after some cows. And if you've ever looked after cows, it's actually a lot easier than you think, especially if you're giving them like affection, right? Cows really are affectionate creatures. A good friend of mine once, he's taking care of some oxen, and they were using the oxen for agriculture. They would actually plow the fields with them. And he was, giving him hey, you did a great job. Like, and the oxen, so powerful, he nudged him just like this, broke his ribs. And he tells this story like, so it's just funny. He's like, here he is, this huge creature just trying to like, and so here's another trivia question. Does anybody know the names of Krishna's cows? He's got a few. The two big ones are Mangala and Pingala. Those are the two big ones. So there's a lot more, but those are his favorite pets, right? So, and in that, right, we understand as a personalist philosophy, right, that every creature, every living entity has a soul, right? And so this is only a weird parallel I'm drawing in my mind, but if you ever read Back to Godhead magazine, the magazine of the Hare Krishna movement, for about 20 years, there was a column in it. It was called like Krishna, the Land and Cows. And it was written by this devotee. Her name was Hare Krishna Devi Dasi. And I remember reading probably 30 years ago in Back to Godhead, and she's describing, she's writing strongly against like modern approaches to raising cattle. Right? So we differentiate between having cows and raising cattle. And so the manuscript that they write, it specifically talks about like depersonalizing cows. Like you don't give them a name, you just give them a number, you don't show them affection, you just, here you go. Because then at the end of their life, like raising cattle means killing cattle, right? Then you don't feel bad about it. So we don't do that. We love cows. Cows can live out their days very happily and actually be really wonderful. They're a great place to take a nap. If you want to take a nap on a day like this, they're very warm and very loving. So when Krishna calls, he from very far away, he says, Mangala, and like the cow will like run at full speed just to get some grain. So this is the lovely life that Krishna has, right? And this is all the residents of the area. They are just having this peaceful life with Krishna. They're stealing butter, they're taking care of cows, they're just having fun. And due to pride, the feeling that this young boy who's doing nothing but causing a ruckus, giving his mother a hard time and making farting noises with his friends, like with his armpits, like he's taking his stuff. Like this is, I think in the Christian book, I think it specifically says like, this Krishna is trying to take my profit. Like, and it's just like, really, like, you feel so like, what's the word? So fearful of losing that this small boy, who actually has everything anyway, right, is going to take from you. So out of pride, he attacks. And when he finally comes to his senses, Krishna is very kind, right? Krishna doesn't stand there in front of everybody and say, oh, you're such a stupid fool. You're acting just like a demon. You're supposed to be the king of heaven. Like, why are you acting this way? There's a specific note that says that Krishna ensures that when he meets with Indra, he meets him in a secluded place. So we've all had probably bad bosses who've like reprimand people in front of everyone, even over nothing. So Krishna understands that this would be humiliating to the king of heaven, right? This person who has so much authority, who is responsible for so much. He's actually humbling himself. So humble and humiliate are actually, it's the same concept. One is by force, right? So you can remain humble or you can be humiliated. That's kind of the option that you have. So Indra, although really he's humiliated because he's been very publicly ousted by, Krishna very lovingly, he still is given this opportunity to be humble, to come and what do we do, right? What is the personalist idea when we're dealing with God, right? We offer prayers. So even though Krishna is standing here, like it's Indra, it says takes off his crown and he sets it down and he kneels before Krishna, and then he offers these prayers. So even though he's right here, he's still offering prayers to him. He's letting him know, like, I was such a fool. Like, please, like, and so I'm going to read those prayers. That's why I have my handy phone, because they're actually very nice prayers. Because that's, we live in a world of duality where we sort of always draw a line, like things are good or they're bad. Like there's no in between. But we find a lot of times in life that when bad things happen, oftentimes something good comes as a result, right? Like I was fired from one job many, many moons ago. And I talked to a lot of people like, oh, you must be devastated, whatever. But actually, like the next day, one of the greatest opportunities of my life happened. Where I was able to work on a manuscript for a devotee. It's okay if you don't.
I've always wondered why Krishna gave Indra so much leeway. I mean, sometimes he is just so out of control. I don't get it. And he always comes crawling back, begging for this. And it's like,
that's funny.
How many times does that have to happen with this guy?
Well, you're a father. How many times will you let your kids screw up? Right? Like that's funny. I mean, what you're saying is absolutely true. Like Indra is like you said, he's out into the stuff he does. You're just like, ugh. But also part of that is it's allegorical as well. So things happen, but it's also a good lesson for us, right? So that no matter how badly we screw up, like Krishna, he doesn't want us to suffer. Like God, the material world exists basically because we wanted to enjoy separately. We wanted to have a life. We saw Krishna and we said, I'd like that. And yours is, okay, you could try. Like, it's not going to work out, but you can try. And so he gives us every opportunity, every moment that we can, we can act right. We can do things, and I'm just kidding saying act right that way, but like we can see things as they are properly. Even if you look at the prison system historically, right? In the United States, it's actually developed by the Quakers. And that's why there's a lot of solitude. Obviously, modern prison system it's a little different. And so the idea was that you would sit in a cell and you would read the Bible, and you would have the intelligence to be introspective, and you would see like, oh, I can be better. The problem is left to our own devices, generally speaking, like you tell me, like, go think about what you've done. In my mind, I'm going to start twisting it. Like, no, it's him. He did something. It's because of that. Like, I'm right. Like, I'm not wrong. So usually we don't come to a very fair conclusion given our own. And so that's one thing about even like our conception of like hell, right? Hell it's not eternal. It's like, hey, buddy, you could do better. Like, let's straighten you out a little bit, like have some discipline, and then come back and try again, right? It's not like you had your shot, you blew it. So Krishna's like that too. Krishna, and that also one difference you see in the relationship that Krishna is having with Indra versus he's having with Yashoda, right? Is Indra still has this sense of awe and reverence, right? Yashoda, she's rebuking Krishna. She's, oh, you naughty boy. Like, the term you hear like to refer to Krishna is he's a rascal. Right? There's a really nice prayer in the Padyavali by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he's like a learned scholar, poet, like can write endlessly. It says the only person who can glorify Krishna more than Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is Anantashesh. Like, so that, and Anantashesh he's an extension of Krishna himself. So that's saying something. So in this prayer, he says, we are not learned poets who have traversed the ocean of knowledge. We're not scholars who know everything that there is to be known. We are simply the servants of a rascal cowherd boy who plays a flute. So that's where we're at. And when we take on that personality, when we take on these higher rasas, right? When we have a relationship in friendship, when we have a relationship as a parent, when we have a relationship as a conjugal lover, right? That we have these moods. Your best friend can say some pretty gnarly stuff to, and they're gonna be okay with it. But if you go to your boss, there's some sort of mood of like, oh yes, I understand you for pointing that out. Like, generally speaking, you're not gonna raise up and be rough with them. And so just like we have these different relationships with people, that Krishna has these different relationships with everybody. And so Indra, being a demigod, right? He still has that mood of, oh yes, I'm so foolish. You are the supreme. Whereas like Mother Yashoda, again, she's getting a stick to give him a few swats, right? So, all right. Does that satisfy craving for?
Comparing it to like a father and a child, I can see that.
Yeah.
He just has so much power and responsibility, and
Yeah.
I don't know, he just abuses it, just like all of us.
Like all of us. Even we have a little bit of power, a little bit of responsibility. We still somehow we funnel it.
Power and responsibility. There's also a lot of opulence.
Yeah.
Right? With opulence comes sense gratification. With sense gratification,
Yeah.
the tendency to think that you are in control.
It's easy to be blinded, right? Well, even there's that verse in the Bible, right, where it says that it's easier to thread a camel through the eye of the needle than for a wealthy man to enter the kingdom of heaven, right? So opulence, it tends to make us think like, oh, yeah, I should be worshipped. I should, like, and it's subtle, right? It doesn't start there, but it's, you know, I remember the first time, like, I had $500, right? Which, like, by today's stat, $500 is like, that's not even a good vacation, right? But I was like 13 years old. I had a paper route, and I thought, like, there's nothing I can't do, right? Like, I grew up in Moundsville, West Virginia, right? It's we have a nice community there, actually, and there's nothing there. Like, there's a gas station with a newsstand, and I think now there's a Walmart, right? I think there was a bowling alley before. It's been a while, and $500, yeah. I rule the world. It's like, it is. So imagine, right? You have all the wealth in the universe, right, at your fingertips. You tend to think like, yeah, I'm all right. I can do anything I want. And then you do, right? So I'm reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the chapter after. So there's Krishna lives over on a hill. The next chapter is Wonderful Krishna, right? So it's sort of the aftermath. And it's kind of funny because all the cowherd men and women, they're just like, oh, geez, this Krishna, he's really something. And he just lifted a literal mountain over everyone, giving them shelter from the rain and ice, right? For a week, like, and there's, I don't know, maybe there's somebody big, and then so Nanda he reveals a little bit that Gargamuni, right? Gargamuni, he's the family guru, right? So who they turn to when they have questions and problems, and he's also an astrologer, and he reveals about Krishna that, oh, you shouldn't be so surprised if he does all these amazing activities. I don't know. It seems like maybe he could be Narayan himself, or at least like a planetary expansion of him. Just be on the lookout. Don't worry. You're going to have a lot of calamities, but he's going to bring you through them. Like, it's going to be okay. And so he tells everybody this. They're like, oh, wow, like, Krishna's really wonderful. It's kind of crazy. Like, we did this. And then the next chapter is Indra. It's actually Indra and Sarabi. They offer prayers. I thought I had it, but I don't. Okay. So the second verse, we'll skip over the preamble. So Indra was very ashamed of having offended the Lord. Approaching in a solitary place, Indra fell down and lay his helmet, whose effulgence was as brilliant as the sun, upon the Lord's lotus feet. Indra had now heard and seen the transcendental power of omnipotent Krishna and his false pride. So again, false pride. I guess we should also draw a line between there is pride. There are things to be proud of, right? But the danger is thinking that, like, because of my own prowess, because of my own greatness, I have done so many things, when usually we're actually very dependent on so many things. Like, even we're just dependent on air. Like, we think we can do anything. Try holding your breath and just being amazing, right? You won't last very long. You'll pass out, right? So his false pride in being the Lord of the three worlds was thus defeated. Holding his hands together in supplication, he addressed the Lord as follows. King Indra said, your transcendental form, a manifestation of pure goodness, is undisturbed by change, shining with knowledge and devoid of passion and ignorance. In you does not exist this mighty flow of the modes of material nature, which is based on illusion and ignorance. So again, he's starting off with Krishna. You're above it all, right? You've established this world in which we can try to be as great as we can. But the reality is as great as we may be able to become, like still that comes from somewhere, right? So Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? Of the strength I am, of the strong I am strength, right? He provides that. So, and all living entities are prone to illusion, right? We're prone to start thinking like, hey, I'm a hotshot. Like I'm Lord of all I survey. And when we say these words, right? We read in the Bhagavatam specifically that people, they think this, I'm the Lord of all I survey, right? And it almost sounds farcical, right? Like who thinks that? Who really thinks they're the Lord of everything? But the reality is when things don't go our way, when we're unhappy, our tendency is to immediately like lash out because we're not getting what we want. It's almost, we're very much like children in that aspect. Maybe we're not on the floor like kicking and screaming, but when we don't get the job we want, when we don't the car that we really like, when it's always like this great like calamity has happened, we're really like morose, when things just don't go perfectly according to our own sweet will, right? So furthermore, how then could there exist in you the symptoms of an ignorant person, such as greed, lust, anger, and envy, which are produced by one's previous involvement in material existence and which cause one to further become entangled in material existence? And yet, as the Supreme Lord, impose punishment to protect religious principles and curb down the wicked. So last week, His Grace Srimala Prabhu, he mentioned there are two reasons why Krishna comes. Who remembers those two reasons? Yep, annihilate the miscreants and
Religion.
protect the devotees. Yeah, so those two things. So what is Krishna doing with Indra right now? Is he annihilating the demons or is he protecting the devotees? He's protecting. Anybody agree? He's doing both. Because Indra, he's acting like a demon. So we don't necessarily say like a demon is this beast who has horns and he's can breathe fire and all this. We talk about quality, right? So what are the qualities of a demon? He's envious, he's prideful, he's arrogant. He thinks he's the Lord of all he surveys. So we acknowledge that there are times when we behave in such a manner. And Indra is behaving in such a manner. So he's killing him, right? But the Vedas, they're a little funny because there's a loophole for everything, right? You can always find a way to do something and not do something, right? You can defame a man by cutting off his mustache, right? Instead of killing him, and that's just as bad. Or you beat someone philosophically, right? And that's the same as killing him. They call it cutting out his tongue, right? So killing that demonic tendency, which we got to do all the time because we're given an opportunity, right? When we're just not trying. I think that's when these things come in. We become envious. We see somebody, oh, his japa bag is very nice. I would like the same japa bag, right? Things like that. Even simple things like that. A japa bag, right? It's something that holds our prayer beads. That's what a japa bag. Japa is we have prayer beads, and it's who's proud of that? Like it's like yes, I have, but still, I've seen it. I've experienced it myself. Like you've got that Nishringadev japa bag. Like it's pretty cool, and where'd you get it? How much? What can I? So even those subtle ways, it builds and builds and builds and builds until it expresses itself because energy, it tends to move, right? Where the only thing we can understand really in the material world, it facilitates change. And so hopefully when we're engaged properly, when we're, trying to, religion, we talk about religion. Religion, it really means to realign, right? To really think about what we're doing, to be in alignment with the Supreme. That's kind of it. We're not, one old joke that I always heard growing up was, if you don't like organized religion, are we the religion for you, right? Because we're not very organized. Even starting on time, we're not very good at things like that. So, but the sincerity is there. We're trying, we say that we are the religion, bhakti, love. Bhakti means love. So we're trying to reestablish our dormant love of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so we read these stories because they're really helpful. Because when we look at our own life, again, in this microcosm, we think, I'm not that bad. I'm not terrible. But then when we look at Indra and we think like, oy, like he's really gone off his rocker. But again, Krishna gives this ability to reestablish his natural order, right? So we'll continue on. Protect religious principles. Oh yeah, and curb down the wicked. Sorry, I got off on a little bit of a tangent there. So he's killing Indra's demonic tendency, but he's also protecting his devotee, because Indra's his devotee as well. So it's this sort of dual purpose. He doesn't have to bring out a sword and do anything. He's already done that a few times, and Indra still was thinking he was an ordinary guy. So further, he goes, you are the father and spiritual master of this entire universe, and also its supreme controller. You are insurmountable time, imposing punishment upon the sinful for their own benefit. Indeed, in your various incarnations, selected by your own free will, you act decisively to remove the false pride of those who presume themselves masters of this world. Super poetic, really. I could not sit here and come up with a prayer as wonderful as this. And I actually have a degree in creative writing, which makes it even funnier. Even fools like me, who proudly think themselves universal lords, quickly give up their conceit and directly take to the path of the spiritual progressive when they see you are fearless, even in the face of time. Thus you punish the mischievous only to instruct them. So that last line, I think, is one of the most telling lines, right? Krishna, he's not punishing because he's like vengeful and he's like, you screw ups, go to hell. He's just saying, like, I don't want this life for you, right? I want you to be with me and have a good time. Like, so I have to come and I have to steer you a little bit, right? So again, working with oxen and cows, when you're training a team of oxen, you have a little stick and you give them a little, it's really just that hard, right? But from a distance, it looks kind of bad. And it's just so they stay in a straight line. And then I think the unique thing about oxen, and this is that they will actually keep walking in a straight line until they're told not to. And that's why ox carts were really prominent in the early days, right? They didn't use horses. Horses scare very easily, but an ox will just keep, in a pair, they just keep going, like through everything, almost until the point of exhaustion. So, engrossed in pride over my ruling power, ignorant of your majesty, I offended you. O Lord, may you forgive me. My intelligence was bewildered, but let my consciousness never again be so impure. So that there's a few like steps here, right? Indra first, he recognizes, oh geez, you are God. I'm a fool, right? You're God, I'm a fool. here's how I messed up. It's actually a really good example of an apology. It's like, here's how I messed up. Please let this never happen again. So, so we're learning about business administration. We're learning about proper apologies. There's everything in the Bhagavatam. You descend into this world, O transcendent Lord, to destroy the warlords who burden the earth and create many terrible disturbances. O Lord, you simultaneously act for the welfare of those who faithfully serve your lotus feet. That's funny. So Krishna, he descends to destroy the warlords who burden the earth and create many terrible disturbances. So going back to the beginning of why did Krishna come in the first place? Does anybody remember the beginning of Krishna book? It says what happened. You know, there's a terrible burden on the earth. The demonic have become very prominent, right? And so the demigods actually appeal to Krishna. Please help us out. And so Krishna comes personally to lend a hand. It's actually Mother Earth appears before Krishna in the form of a cow, right? So that's relevant here coming up. Obeisances unto you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the great soul is capitalized here, just so you know, who are all pervading and who reside in the hearts of all. My obeisances unto you, Krishna, the chief of the Yadu dynasty. Unto him who assumes transcendental bodies according to the desires of his devotees, unto him whose form is itself pure consciousness, unto him who is everything, who is the seed of everything, and who is the soul of all creatures, I offer my obeisances. My dear Lord, when my sacrifice was disrupted, I became fiercely angry because of false pride. Thus, I tried to destroy your cowherd community with severe rain and wind. It's funny that he mentions that they're cowherd community because previously, when he's becoming angry, he says, "Oh, they're just simple cowherd folk. What do they know? I should be getting my, my yagya. Where's my profit?" So he brings it back, acknowledges it's not so bad. "O Lord, you have shown mercy to me by shattering my false pride and defeating my attempt to you, the Supreme Lord, Spiritual Master, and Supreme Soul. I have now come for shelter." So those are sort of the magic words, taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. You're asking him, please, help me out. Give me a little mercy. And that you find that in Bhagavad Gita as well. That's sort of the turning point in the conversation Krishna has with Arjuna, where Arjuna says, "I'm now soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me." So when you're accepting, right, that's sort of what's the word? It's just it's a custom, right? Just use this verbiage, right? I'm a soul surrendered unto you. So, let's see. Thus glorified by Indra, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, smiled and then spoke to him as follows in a voice resonant like the clouds. So we don't only hear from Indra, we also hear what Krishna responds. It says, "My dear Indra, it was out of mercy that I stopped the sacrifice meant for you. You were greatly intoxicated by your opulence as King of Heaven, and I wanted you to always remember me." So kind, right? It's just by mercy. So even going back to before Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill, before this interaction, he's saying that even at that point, I was trying to show you mercy. You'd become puffed up. You'd become too big for your britches, right? That's American saying. And so I wanted to stop you. I wanted to help you. It's a good friend will let us know when we've gone overboard. I think Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, right? Prahlad Maharaj teachings, he says that actually when people give you only praise, they're like an enemy, right? Because they're not, it's not realistic. We can't always be perfect. We can't always be, spot on. So even Krishna, he's saying like, hey, it's okay. I saw what was happening. I stepped in. So a man blinded by intoxication with his power and opulence cannot see me nearby with the rod of punishment in my hand. If I desire his real welfare, I drag him down from his materially fortunate position. So the old saying, right, is that when the Lord is feeling especially favorable to his devotee, he takes away material opulence, right? Let's say like we have these attachments, like let's put them aside. Let's see what your heart really is, right? And let's see. So I think also in this verse, there's some relevance where we talk about how Krishna can be seen. And how is that Krishna can be seen? What's the way? Anyone? There's several verses in the Bhagavad Gita.
The eyes of love.
Yeah, let
Premonjana.
Premonjana Charita. But how do you get the eyes of love? Devotional service, right? So only by devotional service, only by bhakti yoga, only by a loving relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead can we see him, right? It's not merely by endeavor. There's also the mood of the endeavor, right? So we talk about like sincerity and expertise. There was many years ago, 1966, there was a class in Montreal. Srila Prabhupada, he was speaking on the qualities of a devotee, right? And he asked for questions, and one devotee said, well, you've made this list, 26 qualities of a devotee. He says, one of these qualities is expert, right? So what does that mean? If a devotee is supposed to be expert, does it mean he goes to school and he studies everything and he knows everything about everything? Like that doesn't seem possible. Like in one lifetime, maybe you can master 1, 2, maybe 3 things like in completeness. So what does that mean? Does anybody have a good explanation for what it means to be expert?
Exploring devotional service.
Yeah, as a devotee, what does it mean?
Taking care of Krishna and everything.
Sure, that's one way. Prabhupada gave a very simple explanation. He said, expert simply means you do the very best you can, right? And he gives an example that's almost comical. He says that if you look at a man who is sweeping, you can tell when someone is trying and someone is not, right? So when someone is sweeping, and first of all, like expertise in sweeping a floor, like that just seems funny because you sweep it or you don't sweep it. Like doesn't seem to be a lot of middle ground. But if a person is sincerely sweeping, is sincerely trying to do the service according to their ability, the result is very obvious, right? The floor is clean. But especially those of us parents, if you've ever asked your child to sweep the floor, right? And you go and they move the broom around and you go like, what? Did you do anything? It's because their heart isn't into it, right? Because like nobody is like sitting around thinking, I will perfect my existence through sweeping, right? And even at this time when Prabhupada is speaking and writing, right? In India, they still had people who would go out and they would sweep the street manually, right? So now we have machines and you just drive through, you don't think about it. But So he says, even in that regard, a sincere sweeper in the street is better than any charlatan sycophant, right? So the opposite end of that, a person is insincere, is not acting expertly as a devotee, is not seeing this is a service, this needs to be done, do my best. And then you go and you sweep behind them and you're like, ugh, okay, I guess you did something. So that's the difference, right? So Indra, he was not acting very expertly as a devotee. He was acting expertly in a material circumstance, thinking that I deserve everything. By my prowess, I should be glorified. By my own power, I've done everything. I'm providing because of me providing the rain. These people are subsiding on rice and wheat and vegetables. Cows are giving milk because they're eating the grass, because it grows, because I give rain. Practically, I'm supporting the entire world. What are they doing? Right? They won't even give me a little sacrifice. And then seeing that actually he's just filling position out of necessity, because we have to have rain. Because he understood his relationship with Krishna, and he offered these prayers. So we can analyze, and we can put ourselves in similar situations. We can see, how am I being like Indra today? How can I be like the good Indra, not the bad Indra? We can move on. So I won't bore you with else. If you guys have questions, comments, corrections, criticisms, anything, I'll take them. So
It seems a great relief to me to know that, the King of Heaven, with all his opulence and power, can still feel pride and feel, like he's better than Krishna, and hurt Krishna and hurt the devotees, not purposely, but Krishna will still forgive him. So no matter what we do out there, we make mistakes. Just know that if it can happen to the King of Heaven, it can happen to us.
Yeah.
And Krishna will forgive us. So don't be so hard on yourself. Just if you're sincerely sorry and you're sincere in your thinking that you've done wrong, it's just good to know that Krishna will forgive us.
Yeah.
Good feeling.
Unlimited chances. It's I think Prabhupada said everybody can go back to God in this lifetime, right? That is possible. Will everyone? Probably not. He said, but don't make me come back, right? That was so. Yeah, we have so much opportunity to screw up, and we have so much opportunity to not, right? But the important thing is so if you work like carpentry, there's a lot of wiggle room for making mistakes in carpentry. It's not about not making mistakes, right? But it's the ability to recover from the mistake. So acknowledging like, that wall is not in square. How do I make it in square? So in the same way, right, we have to see what I'm doing right now is in alignment with the values that I've set forth in my life, right? With the values that I've understood from Krishna to be the qualities of a devotee, right? Compassion, kindness, a friend to all, right? These are the top qualities of a devotee that we understand. And there is a rectification process. Practically speaking, the entire material world exists as a rectification process. So, yeah, we can actively participate, we can be humble, or we can be humiliated and be forced to rectify ourselves. Yes. I don't know a lot about that off the top of my head. So I know that there's something where he was being carried, right? And it was wherever he was dropped, that's where he would stay. That was the agreement. And that sort of exhausts my off-the-cuff knowledge of Govardhan, the person. So if you have anything you'd like to add, sure. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So you hear parts of it and then you're, oh, okay. So, okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I will humbly thank you for giving me your time and attention and ask for forgiveness for wasting your time if I have. So, Hare Krishna.